My name is Pete Seat, and I work in the communications and public affairs industry, where I help clients, Fortune 200 companies, trade associations, issue advocacy firms. I help them develop and execute their strategic communication plans in a variety of states, in a variety of ways. I also do media training at the executive level and media relations for clients. And kind of outside of my daily job, I provide informal communications advice to elected officials and candidates at the local, state, and federal levels as a result of my previous experience as a spokesman in the White House and for candidates and the Republican Party in the past. I was drawn to communications because it's a natural and seamless transition from that to theater, which is what I did at the University of Arizona. I was a theater arts major. And when you think about it, you have scripts, you have sets, you have live audiences, you have newspaper critics when you're in theater. And on the communication side, and particularly in politics, you have speeches and talking points. You also have sets as far as camera angles and what looks most appealing on television. You have live audiences at speeches and rallies and bill signings. And you have newspaper columnists who are nothing more than theater critics. The transition was seamless and easy for me to make. My goal was always to move to New York City and become a struggling actor on Broadway. But the more time I was politically engaged and involved on campus at the University of Arizona, working to build our earned media portfolio and disseminate messages around the campus and around Tucson, I saw that it really did make sense that theater was very much like politics and communications, and that's where I found myself. The types of people that I think are best suited for this work are folks who are willing to take risks, folks who thrive in a creative atmosphere, people who have exceptionally good writing skills. That's really the part that can set people apart from others. I think writing is a dying skill, a dying art form these days. And being able to refine writing skills and become better and better will open doors of opportunity that are not expected and certainly have opened those doors for me along the way. Believe it or not, yes, my theater arts degree relates very closely to what I do in communications and what I have done in politics. And this is a conversation I have with people all the time. When you're in college, you can become very anxious about what you're studying and where that will take you next. I had no idea in the world when I would sit in my dorm room because I was a bit of a loser watching White House press secretary Ari Fleischer at that time do his daily press briefings. I had no idea that only years later I would be working in the White House press office, that my desk would be directly behind that very podium. I wanted to do theater. I wanted to be on stage. I wanted to perform. But what I do today still has so many of those different elements. I give speeches all across Indiana, all across the country, and internationally at times. And it's because of that theater training. I write my own speeches, I write talking points for candidates and for clients. I help them become better speakers. And it all harkens back to that theater training, to that training on the stage and behind the stage at the University of Arizona that allows me to do that work. One of the most important things you can do if communications and public affairs is of interest is to read, read, read. Read for interests, read for pleasure, read to learn, read for any reason you can possibly come up with to rationalize why you should crack open a book or visit a news outlet website. You need to know what's going on in the world and in your community. And just the simple act of reading makes you a better speaker and a better writer. You will you will find yourself channeling things that you have read, not stealing other people's words or cribbing what they've said, but you will find words and phrases and thoughts and ideas as you get lost in the moment of reading. And that is the number one thing I think people can do, and unfortunately that people don't do enough of, is read. The challenge with communications is that it's always changing. We did not have Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all these other social media platforms when I was at the University of Arizona. Facebook had actually just started. U of A campus was one of the very first to have access to Facebook. Being up to speed on these new means of delivering messages, but keeping in mind that at the end of the day, it all intersects at one thing. And that's the most powerful form of communications, and that's word of mouth. Nothing can beat word of mouth. It is tried and it is true and it always works. Now, the entry point to word of mouth may be Facebook, it may be a television advertisement, it may be a news article or a column, but ultimately, folks are going to talk to their peers. They're going to ask their friends for advice about who they vote for, what kind of car they buy, where they go on vacation. That's what drives people in the end. Staying on top of those trends, understanding what's coming next, being willing to experiment and see what works and doesn't work, but understanding that there are tried and true methods that do deliver each and every time. It's understood that we can, in this day and age, do our jobs from anywhere. It doesn't matter whether we're in the office or in a Starbucks or my favorite place to work, Buffalo Wild Wings. Everyone has a different way of approaching their job and their interests, and you should find that and embrace it, and don't think that because you don't wake up early enough or you don't stay up late enough that you're doing something wrong. Find your way and go forward with it. Build relationships, and not relationships that are transactional, but relationships that are meaningful. Get to know people as people. It's easy when you go into, these networking receptions, right? Everyone's passing out business cards and slapping each other on the back. There's not real meaningful connection happening. What you want to do is learn something about the person you're talking to, internalize it, remember it, jot it down if you have to, and then follow up with them. Keep the conversation going. It doesn't have to be about our jobs all the time. If you know that someone is a huge University of Arizona basketball fan and there's an awesome last minute shot and U of A wins, shoot them a text and say, "Man, did you see that awesome play at the end?" It's what we do with our friends. It's why our friends stay close and why we stay close to them, because we have memories. There's no reason why we can't do that in the professional workplace too. My biggest and best successes I've had professionally have come from the relationships that I've made and built along the way. There are reporters who I got to know during my service at the White House that to this day call me for quotes and stories, or who invite me to come on to talk about the issues of the day on CNN or Fox or MSNBC. And it's because we got to know each other. The best gift I got on the University of Arizona campus was, no offense to my professors, but it was what I did outside the classroom. And it was the extracurricular activities. I was heavily involved in college Republicans. I was chapter president. I was state chairman for the entire state federation during my senior year of college. But it was taking what I learned and applying it in real time to real life situations where I grew, actually writing and sending press releases to the media, and then doing interviews on campus, on the mall, with the palm trees behind me, having that give and take and learning, okay, this is how I can deliver a concise response that's a good soundbite for the nightly news. Here's how I need to interact with a reporter who might be a little more adversarial, or a reporter who's a little more supportive or sympathetic to what we're trying to convey. you don't always learn that in the classroom. You learn it by doing. At least for me, that's the case. I learn by doing. And I wrote a ton of letters to the editor in the Daily Wildcat. I think they were tired of me sending in letters to the editor, but it was something that I could learn from. Each and every time I wrote, I got better at it. And now I can say that I've been a published author. I've written a book. I've published columns in Politico and on CNN.com and MSNBC.com and in Newsweek, things that literally were dreams when I was living in Coronado, but today are a reality because I just kept plugging away at it and trying and getting better as I went along. That's the key, is finding those ways to apply what you're learning and what you're interested in outside the classroom, so that when you throw that cap up in the air at commencement, you're ready to hit the ground running.